There is one player on this chessboard that hasn't come up yet, and maybe we could skate to where the puck is going. When you talk about the South China Sea, okay, sure, South Korea, Japan, Australia, all of those major players there, they're just a couple of 100 million people. But then China is in population decline. Xi apparently is self-destructing in terms of trade. Seems like containment's working pretty well there because of all the self-inflicted wounds. But the fastest growing country, the fastest growing economy, the quickest to develop is India. And they seem to have a very pragmatic approach. Hey, they'll buy cheap oil from Putin, and they are their own sovereign country with their own point of view. Would we not be really well advised over the next 10 to 20 years to make that our priority and India's role in this? How do you look at them?
Well, we definitely view India as an ally, right? It's part of the Quad, which is this Rube Goldberg type alliance structure that we put together in East Asia that includes Australia, Japan, the United States, and India. And India is smartly maintaining its good relations with Russia. The Indians understand, like Jeff and I do, that the Russians are no great threat. But from India's point of view, the real threat is China.
Right.
And there are two places where India cares about China. One is on the India-China border up in the Himalayas, where they've actually had conflicts, right? And there's a real danger of war breaking out. The second place, which is maybe even more dangerous, not at the moment, but will be over time, is the Indian Ocean, because the Chinese are imitating the United States. They not only want to be a regional hegemon, they want to develop power projection capability. So the Chinese are building a blue water navy that can come out of East Asia, through the Straits of Malacca, through the Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf. And once you start talking about going through the Indian Ocean, the Indians get spooked.
Right.
And that's when the Americans and the Indians come together.
Okay, let's think of this from an engineering point of view, if we could. Why are the Chinese developing the Navy? Because for 40 years, I've read essays on all of the choke points in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, the Indian Ocean against China. That's our policy, choke points. Look at the Malacca Straits. Look what we can do here. First island chain. This is American strategy. Can we keep the Chinese submarines out of the Pacific Ocean? First island chain, and so forth. So, of course, they react. They're rich. They're going to build a navy so that they can get their oil on which their economy runs. Can we be a little bit sensible with them and decide how we're not going to have choke points, and then we don't have to have a nuclear war, which is really going to ruin our day? That's the point. We can think a little bit. We can understand it from their perspective. We can understand it from our perspective. Deconfliction. By the way, I don't believe India is an ally. India is a superpower. India is going to have its own very distinctive interests, thank you. It's not going to be an ally of the United States. I happen to like India enormously and
we're making our iPhones
admire
there.
their policies, but the idea that India is going to ally with the United States against China, in somebody's dream in Washington, because it's another delusion in Washington, because they should get a passport and go see the world and understand something.
But Jeffrey, if they
these are my failed students in Washington right now because they didn't listen to their professor.
Jeffrey, we're making our iPhones in India now. Is that not significantly important?
Say it again.
We're moving iPhone production. Cooper, you're into economics here and that impact. You got Apple moving out of China. You've got Japan funding people leaving China to Vietnam and to India. Is that not the solution here? As we decouple from China, it seems like they come back to the table. We had Xi Jinping kick all the venture capitalists, all investment out of China. He got rid of all the education startups. And then, 2 or 3 years later, he's in San Francisco asking all of us to invest more money and saying, where'd you go?
Okay, first of all, invite me back 10 years and we'll see how smart all these decisions are. Because
Xi Jinping's?
It's incredible. No, I'm talking about, yes, we've moved to India. That's our great ally. And then we're going to have other issues.
Well, and Vietnam, yeah.
Okay. I think you said that Xi Jinping's trade policy is self-imploding or something.
It seems like there's a lot of self-inflicted wounds.
No,
when
it's
you...
not. Let me explain what the wounds are.
Okay.
The wounds are the United States' deliberate policy to stop you from selling things to China and to stop China buying things from you. That's not self-inflicted wounds.
Oh, no, you're wrong
This
here.
is a clear...
You're wrong here.
Wait
He
a minute.
got
Wait,
rid
just
of-
to say. Let me say, please.
Yeah.
Because this is very important for the economy of the people in this room. This is a decision that was taken around 2014 to contain China. And it's been systematically applied since then. And it's not a surprise that Biden kept all the things that Trump did and added more. And now Trump says, I'm going to do all the things that Biden has kept in place, and I'm going to do more. This is not a self-inflicted wound. The United States has closed the market to China. Okay? Is that smart? No, it's not smart. Is it leading to, is it, by the way, recuperating American manufacturing jobs? Zero. It may shift them a bit. It may make things less efficient. It may make all of you lose a bit more money or not make as much money. But is it going to solve any single economic problem in the United States? No way.
Let's let John in.
Can I just-
Let's let John in.
Spicy.
I just want to ask Jeff a question on this. My argument is that this is the way the world works.
Yes, I know. And it is.
And it is. But if I'm describing how the world really works, how do you beat me?
The reason is you've described a world, you've described, I think, better than any person I ever read or know, how American foreign policy works. I think it's likely to get us all blown up. You titled not because of John, but because he's made an accurate description of a profoundly misguided approach, which is power seeking. Even if you're safe as a regional hegemon, you're never safe if another regional hegemon does what you do. No, you can't allow that to happen, so you have to meddle every single place in the world. Now, all I'm saying, wait, let me just finish, because it's important. That it is important to say, try this in the nuclear age. You don't get a second chance. So this, to me, is the most definitive fact of our lives, which is we are now in a war, direct war, not proxy war, direct war with Russia, which has 6,000 nuclear warheads. I can't think of anything more imbecilic than that, aside from the fact that I know step by step, because I saw it with my own eyes, how we got into that mess because we thought we had to meddle up to, including putting NATO into Georgia in the Caucasus, of all places, and Ukraine. So we made that because we have to meddle because we couldn't let good enough stand. If we do the same with China, there will be a war, but it's not like reading about the Crimean War or World War I or World War II. That's my difference. This is a fine theory that explains a lot of things, but damn if you can make ChatGPT or you can make Optimus or you can make all the rest, we can avoid nuclear war. So just do a little bit better than saying it's inevitable.
All right, so we only have a minute left, so I want to give it to John.
I just want to ask.
He had a question.
I know, but we only have a minute left, and it's Sachs'
We got to
panel,
add 5 minutes.
so-
This is the best panel I've
We
ever
gotta-
been on in my life. Can we just
All
add
right,
10 minutes?
5 minutes.
We got to add 5 or 10 minutes. The best panel. Is this the best panel ever?
Wait. I feel like
Sorry,
John
I'm
never had a
calling an
chance to
audible.
respond. We got 5 minutes. So before we leave this topic, John, your book is called "The Tragedy of Great Power Politics." You clearly understand the tragic aspect of how great power rivalry, great power competition can lead to disaster. What Jeff is saying is we're now in the nuclear age, and it's going to lead to nuclear war. So do we have to be on this path, or is there a way off of it?
2 points. In my heart, I'm with Jeff. In my head, I'm not with Jeff. I wish he were right, but I don't believe he's right. To answer your question head on, I believe that there is no way out. We are in an iron cage. This is just the way international politics works. And it's because you're in an anarchic system where you can never be sure that a really powerful state in the system won't come after you and inflict a century of national humiliation on you. So you go to great lengths to avoid that by trying to gain power at the expense of another power. And that leads to all sorts of trouble. Can war be avoided? I like to distinguish between security competition, which I think is inevitable, and war, which is where security competition evolves into war. I think war can be avoided, and we were thankfully successful in that regard during the Cold War. And hopefully that will be the case in the US-China competition moving forward. Can I guarantee that? No. Does this disturb me greatly? Yes. But again, this is just the tragic aspect of the world we live in.
Let me just ask one, because we're a little bit. I know we were going to try and talk about.